the most common type of noise that wrecks our communication with others. I'm in an interracial relationship, and I know that a lot of you are as well. Any couple who has been happily married for many years, or any person who is very successful in their career, will talk to you about how important good communication is. For those of you who don't know, I actually went to university for this. I have a bachelor in communication, and lucky for you, you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to get this information from a university. I am just telling it to you for free. So if you appreciate this information and find it helpful, please subscribe, like, comment, share this with a friend or your spouse in order to help them with their communication skills as well. I would really appreciate that. I'm going to be talking to you about the Shannon Weaver communication model, which is one of the most respected and influential communication models that there are. So I'm about to show you this model, and then we're going to break down each individual part because it can get a lot deeper than you might think at first. So here's the communication model on the screen here, and I'm going to be using this interaction between you and I right now as an example. So I am the sender right now, which means I'm the information source. I'm the one talking to you about communication. And the way that I am encoding the message is through my verbal speech. The channel that I am using is YouTube, and you are the receiver who is decoding the information as you are hearing it. And then there's the noise, which affects how my message comes across, how you decode it, how you receive it. We'll start off talking about noise because understanding noise is one of those things that can make or break your communication. So there are actually 6 types of noises that can affect how the receiver receives what's being said to them. So the first type of noise is physical noise, which is like a dog barking in the background, like a loud noise, or maybe the person is really uncomfortable in their chair. There's some kind of distraction around them that's impairing the ability to fully receive the information as it was intended. The second type of noise, which I find the most interesting and I also think is the most common type of noise that wrecks our communication with others, is psychological noise. This could be as simple as some stress and anxiety that you're carrying into this conversation from having a hard day at work, or it could be as deep as some kind of unresolved childhood traumas, which is causing you to project something onto the person who's sending the information, or to misunderstand the information in a certain way because of your personal psychological traumas. Third is physiological noise. So that would be if you had a hearing impairment or a speech impediment, something in your physical being that is making it difficult to send or receive information. The fourth type of noise is semantic noise. So this could be misunderstandings of jargon or just certain sayings, different people groups, like people of different status, people of different communities and cultures can have different sayings, and that can make it really difficult to fully understand what the other person is saying to you. I found that a lot when I moved from New Zealand to Canada. There were a lot of times that I said things and people just looked at me like, what the heck are you saying? And so I had to learn to adapt the way I speak to fit Canadian culture. The fifth type of noise is organizational noise, which is kind of a trickier one to fully describe and grasp, but I would kind of break it down as it's anything that provides structure to the way that the communication has to take place. So it could be different power dynamics in the conversation, like a patient and a doctor, or a manager and an employee. And then finally, there is cultural noise, which is when two different cultures are trying to communicate with each other and they just have different ways of communicating. For example, when I was at university, I did a paper on intercultural communication, and the countries that I chose to compare the communications was the United States and China. People in the US and people in China have completely different ways of communicating. So for example, in China, if you give someone a gift and then they are really excited and they open it right away, that's seen as very disrespectful. Whereas in the US, if someone gives you a gift and you don't appear excited to open it, and then you maybe save it to later to open it, that could come across as disrespectful. Like, oh, they weren't excited about my gift, they didn't care about my gift. Those two different responses to one action have underlying messages that we might not even realize are cultural values that have been embedded into us. I know we kind of flew through those, but I hope that that gives you a pretty good baseline understanding of the different kinds of noises that could be affecting your communication. And if you find yourself in a conversation with your partner and you just feel like they're not understanding what you're saying, you can kind of start to think about these things. Could there be some cultural noise going on? Could there be some psychological noise going on? A really good way to test if there is some noise going on, if you're unsure, is getting the person to repeat back to you what you just said to them. For example, if I say to Josh, "Hey, have you had time to do the laundry today like I asked?" I could just be meaning, "Oh, I'm wondering if you got around to doing the laundry, because if not, I'm going to do it." He could be hearing, "Oh my goodness, you're so lazy. I bet you haven't even done what I asked of you." So if I speak that sentence to him and then immediately he snaps back at me and he goes, "No, I haven't had the chance to do it, but I have cleaned the kitchen and I have walked the dog. What have you been doing?" I can pause in that moment instead of matching his energy and being like, "Why are you talking so rude to me? I'm just asking if you've done the laundry." Da, 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 da. I can just pause and be like, "It sounds like he didn't hear what I said properly. It sounds like there might have been some noise." And then I can say to him, "When I asked you that, did it sound like an attack?" And then that gives him space to say, "Yeah, it did sound like an attack. It sounded like you were angry." And then I can bring clarity to what I actually meant. And there's just that open line of communication that de-escalates the conflict. And also something that ties in with that is, don't be afraid to over communicate. It might sound ridiculous to you to be like, "What do you think I meant by that?" Getting to a place in your relationship where those questions are appreciated and seen as helpful instead of annoying or interrogating is a really good place to be. Josh and I talk like that to each other a lot. We try to do that because I feel like the second we stop asking questions like that, the second we stop trying to clarify our communication and what's going on, that's when our communication goes like this. And we're just stuck with the psychological noise or physiological noise, and we just let that rule our communication. And that's a really toxic place to be, especially in marriage, because you want to have unity and oneness and to fully be on the same page. And that is impossible to do with poor communication. Let's talk a little bit about encoding and decoding. So we might think two people are having a conversation in person. How are they encoding the information? We might say, through verbal speech, duh. Yes, but also no. In a face-to-face conversation, 55% of communicating is done through non-verbal behaviors. That means body language, facial expressions. 38% of communication is done through vocal, so your tone, your volume, the way that you're pronouncing words. Like, for example, if I emphasized different words in the sentence, if I said, "Your camera is off," or if I said, "Your camera is off," or "Your camera is off," see how every time I emphasize a different word in that sentence, it gives the sentence a different tone, a different sound. And then only 7% of the communication is done through words, your choice of words. There's almost always multiple ways that we're sending messages. Sometimes these messages are conflicting to the receiver, and there can be multiple forms of noise. There seems to be so many things that can impact the way that our message comes across. If it's an especially hard conversation, or you're having a really hard time being on the same page as your partner about something, don't be afraid to write a letter. It takes out some of the different ways of communication because it's just the words on the paper. You don't have to worry about the nonverbal or the vocal. You can only focus on the words, and that might be able to simplify it for you and make it easier for your message to come across. It's really important for the sender and the receiver to be self-aware and to know things about themselves, like if the sender is more prone to raising their voice when they get excited, and then the receiver finds someone raising their voice to immediately mean a negative thing and they get very timid. Knowing those things about yourself, and if it's possible, knowing that about the person you're communicating to, that could be invaluable. For example, say you have a problem with authority and you're watching this video right now because you have that part of your brain that really struggles with authority, maybe from something that happened when you were younger. You might find yourself listening to me talking to you and having thoughts like, why does she feel like she can tell me what to do? Like, this is so annoying how she seems like a know-it-all. Or you could have those kinds of thoughts in your mind, but to be able to tell yourself, no, she's just trying to help me, and this video will actually have good tips for me, and just being very self-aware of those negative thinking patterns, then combating them with the truth, that is going to help you a lot in your communication. If you would like some more communication style videos from me, I'd love to provide that for you. I'd love to talk more about intercultural communication. I think that would actually maybe be a really good one, considering that I'm in an interracial relationship and I know that a lot of you are as well. Or we could talk about some very common trauma responses that often affect how people hear what's being spoken to them. Whatever you want, let me know in the comments down below. I hope this video was helpful to you, and I wish you all the best in all of your relationships. I will see you in the next video. Bye.